What if everything we thought we knew about the Blake Lively vs. Justin Baldoni legal battle was completely backward? What if the real smear campaign didn't start with Baldoni filing legal papers but with a secretive, calculated media strategy designed to destroy his credibility before he ever stepped foot in court? Welcome to the story Hollywood doesn't want you to hear. Behind the flashing lights, glamorous photo ops, and carefully worded public statements lies a growing body of evidence suggesting that Team Blake Lively may have launched the first attack not in court but through the press. Articles appeared out of nowhere. Talking points began to surface across multiple platforms, all questioning Baldoni's leadership, experience, and character. And now creators, journalists, and digital watchdogs are uncovering a disturbing pattern of coordination, one that points not to coincidence but to intent. This isn't a story about a celebrity feud. It's a story about power, how it's used, how it's protected, and what happens when someone fights back. Justin Baldoni didn't just stand up for his creative rights, he may have exposed a machine built to control narrative, silence dissent, and crush anyone who challenges the industry's golden image. In this video, we break down the emails, the timing, the media strategy, and the creators who are now being dragged into the crossfire. We follow the trail that's leading straight back to Lively's camp. And we're asking the questions the mainstream won't, because the truth it's coming out. And Team Blake may have been the one to push the first domino. This is the story behind the headlines, and once you see the full picture, you'll never look at this feud the same way again. It started quietly, like a whisper in the industry's back halls. Whispers that Justin Baldoni's name was being dragged into conversations that didn't belong to him. Not publicly at first, no headlines, no call-outs, just murmurs. But in Hollywood, the whispers travel faster than wildfire. And before long, those whispers were no longer rumors, they became a strategy. Because what many are now discovering is that Blake Lively's team may have initiated the smear campaign against Baldoni long before any legal documents were filed, and that discovery changes everything. For months, the public believed the narrative began when Baldoni stood his ground. Legally, he had brought forth claims, defended his work, and distanced himself from the sensationalism Blake's PR team seemed determined to push. But according to new insiders, it was Team Blake, not Baldoni, who quietly started laying the groundwork to discredit him first. The timeline now appears messier, more tangled than anyone expected. While the court case played out in headlines, a separate drama brewed behind the scenes. Multiple entertainment executives, studio insiders, and even journalists who requested anonymity are now stepping forward, revealing they were approached by intermediaries connected to Lively's PR reps. And the message was clear: cast doubt on Baldoni. What's becoming increasingly evident is that this wasn't just standard PR management. This wasn't crisis response, this was a preemptive strike. Sources claim carefully worded emails, vague references to Baldoni's inexperience, and even oddly timed resurfacing of old criticisms about his directorial choices all seemed to arrive simultaneously at a time when Blake Lively herself was facing intense questions about her own involvement in Wayfarer's development and alleged behind-the-scenes control. And yet, despite all that, Justin said nothing. He didn't respond to the bait, he didn't call it out. At least not at first. Instead, he focused on his legal filing. He kept his press appearances strictly about his work and remained diplomatically silent about the strange barrage of media negativity that suddenly began surrounding him. But to anyone who watched closely, the pattern was clear: this wasn't organic. Even industry commentators have begun to notice the shift. Veteran journalist Melinda Hart, who has covered celebrity legal disputes for over 2 decades, recently stated on a podcast, "This feels strategic. This feels intentional. And more importantly, it feels like Blake's team wanted to shift the blame before the public caught on." But what were they trying to shift the blame from? That's the question everyone's now asking. If you follow the timeline, Blake Lively's public image began to subtly fracture around the time the Wayfarer controversy exploded online. Once celebrated as the sophisticated starlet turned producer, Lively was now being accused of leveraging her influence to silence collaborators, alter scripts without consent, and stall creative progress when it didn't benefit her brand. And who was at the center of much of that chaos? Justin Baldoni. The more one digs, the clearer the motive becomes. Discrediting Baldoni may not have been just about ego, it may have been a calculated move to neutralize his credibility before he could legally challenge her. Because make no mistake, Baldoni knew what was coming. And based on the emails now circulating through legal circles, so did Lively's camp. Some leaked correspondences, now verified by legal experts familiar with both parties, show that several of Blake's team members were preparing for a reputational battle months in advance. Discussions about protecting her legacy and controlling the conversation were recurring themes. And one line in particular from a January 2024 internal memo stands out: "We need to ensure Justin's narrative doesn't dominate. Start sourcing past interviews, Reddit speculation, anything we can amplify as inconsistencies. That's not rumor. That's strategy, and that kind of directive doesn't come from nowhere." Still, many wondered why risk it. Why would a celebrity like Blake Lively with such a polished image and massive brand deals risk engaging in back-channel tactics that could so easily backfire? The answer may lie in how much was truly at stake. Sources close to the production confirmed that if Baldoni's claims proved valid, it could unravel not just Wayfarer's reputation but Lively's behind-the-scenes ambitions entirely. We're talking about production rights, back-end profits, studio loyalty, and future opportunities. Blake wasn't just protecting her public image. She was potentially shielding a years-long plan to become a dominant creative force in Hollywood. And Baldoni, he was the first one who stood in her way and refused to budge. As the story unfolds, even former allies of Lively are beginning to distance themselves. Subtle, yes, but noticeable. A few collaborators have quietly unfollowed her on social media. A respected showrunner she once praised has now refused to comment when asked if they'd work with her again. These shifts may seem small, but in Hollywood, silence speaks volumes. And then there's the latest twist: Justin Baldoni's legal team is now actively investigating whether a deliberate defamation campaign was orchestrated by Team Lively even before the countersuit was filed. If that accusation sticks, it could open the door to entirely new legal consequences. We're not talking about creative disagreements anymore. We're talking about intentional character sabotage. If proven, it could suggest malice, something courts take very seriously. What makes this more explosive is that Justin himself has remained publicly restrained, choosing dignity over drama. But according to legal insiders, that may be changing. His team is compiling a timeline of digital articles, media appearances, and podcast interviews that seemed oddly coordinated, many of them using near-identical talking points, questioning his vision, motivation, or even integrity. Several of these appeared around the same time that Lively's own legal issues were escalating, behind closed doors. And now, with subpoenas pending and media watchdogs turning their attention to the source of these smears, the narrative is flipping. People are no longer asking, did Baldoni go too far? They're asking, was Blake Lively's team the one pulling the strings all along? Even longtime PR executives are now weighing in anonymously, with one noting, in this business, reputation hits don't just happen. Someone's paying for them, either in time, favors, or money. And this smells like a preemptive hit job gone wrong. Suddenly, the story we thought we knew is cracking open. The headlines once meant to paint Baldoni as disorganized or overly emotional now look like a campaign of manipulation. So the real question now becomes, what else is about to come out? Because if this is only the beginning and more coordinated attacks on Baldoni are proven to have originated from Lively's camp, this case could take a stunning turn. In Hollywood, image is everything. And when someone is caught trying to tarnish someone else's image first, especially before a lawsuit even reaches trial, it changes not just the legal trajectory, but the public one too. And as of this moment, Blake Lively's carefully curated image may never be the same. Once the whispers turned to headlines, it became impossible to ignore. The shift in tone, the sudden change in how the press described Justin Baldoni, the once respected filmmaker and advocate, was now being framed as erratic, difficult, and even overstepping his bounds in the creative process. But what was behind that sudden shift? How did the narrative turn so quickly and in such a targeted way? That's where things get interesting. Journalists, commentators, and even fans began to notice that multiple media outlets, some mainstream, others more niche, started running stories about Baldoni that didn't align with his public behavior. His interviews were calm, his legal filings precise and respectful, and yet articles were popping up questioning his professionalism, hinting at behind-the-scenes drama, without offering concrete sources. Then came the copy-paste problem. Readers on Reddit and X, formerly Twitter, began pointing out how strangely similar the language was across several platforms. Phrases like Baldoni's ego may be clouding his judgment, or concerns about his emotional investment in the project were repeated nearly word for word. It felt scripted, coordinated, manufactured. At first it seemed like conspiracy. But digital sleuths, media analysts, and a few bold content creators began digging deeper. They traced IP posting patterns, they used browser plugins to compare article timestamps, and what they found wasn't just unusual, it was alarming. Several of the early articles painting Baldoni in a negative light were all published within 48 hours of each other. Many came from outlets known for pay-to-play reputation management, and some of those outlets, interestingly, had past affiliations with PR firms. connected to Blake Lively's media team, that discovery blew the door wide open because if these outlets were being fed similar talking points at the same time, it raised the question: was this a coincidence or a deliberate strategy to shape public perception? More alarmingly, several influencers and YouTubers who often rely on entertainment news sites for commentary picked up those talking points and unknowingly spread them even further. In effect, Team Blake didn't need to launch a public smear themselves. They only had to plant the narrative, then sit back and let the machine run. And that machine ran fast. Within days, online discussions about Baldoni began to shift. Once a symbol of modern masculinity and mindful storytelling, he was now being portrayed as someone trying too hard, pushing too fast, and lacking the maturity to handle big studio projects. It was subtle but effective until it wasn't, because people noticed. Content creators like podcast host Elaine Vega and media analyst Trevor Kimball were among the first to flag the patterns. On a now viral TikTok, Vega explained the timing is too perfect. Multiple news sites pushing the same lines about Baldoni, all while Blake's reputation is being questioned. It's textbook narrative control. And once that curtain was pulled back, the public began demanding answers. Where was all this negativity really coming from? Why were specific critiques, ones that hadn't existed 6 months ago, suddenly being echoed across platforms? And most damning of all, why were those critiques emerging only after Baldoni's legal team signaled they were preparing to file? Insiders close to Baldoni's camp began hinting to press that they were collecting these articles and social posts as evidence not just of media bias but of a deliberate smear campaign orchestrated to undermine his credibility before any facts could come out in court. And then came the subpoenas. In a bold legal move, Baldoni's lawyers reportedly began issuing discovery requests to uncover email communications between certain entertainment writers and publicists with known connections to Blake Lively, though many details remain sealed. Multiple reports confirm that at least two publicists named in these requests had previously worked on campaigns for Blake's luxury endorsements and media appearances. That connection is enough to trigger serious legal and PR alarms. Because if a clear line can be drawn between Lively's team and media pieces meant to discredit Baldoni, that opens the door to defamation claims and possibly tortious interference, depending on whether the smear impacted his business dealings or film negotiations. But it doesn't stop there. The public backlash, already simmering, is now boiling. Influencers who once supported Blake are beginning to distance themselves, openly questioning the ethics of weaponizing media to attack a colleague. One creator at CINE Queen Jen with over 1.5 million followers posted a thread that read, "If this is true, and Blake's team really planted those stories to sabotage Justin's image, it's not just shady. It's disturbing. This industry already chews people up. We don't need celebs attacking their collaborators behind the scenes." The comment section exploded. Thousands agreed. The tide was turning. And here's the twist: Blake Lively has yet to address any of this. No statement, no denial. Not even a passive tweet. That silence, it speaks volumes, because when you're accused of something this coordinated, this intentional, and this damaging, you respond. You say something, you clarify, but Blake hasn't. And neither has Ryan Reynolds, despite being publicly linked to Blake's business decisions during the Wayfarer controversy. That silence is starting to look like strategy, or worse, like guilt. And as more media watchdogs begin to join the conversation, the timeline becomes harder to ignore. Every coincidental story, every recycled talking point, every backhanded compliment in press coverage now reads like part of a script. And that script, it appears, was written long before any lawsuit was public. The smear wasn't a response, it was a first move. That changes everything, because it reframes Justin Baldoni not as a man suddenly lashing out or creating unnecessary drama, but as a target of a calculated effort to undermine him before he could act. A preemptive attack designed to tilt public opinion and scare him into silence. It didn't work. Baldoni didn't back down. He didn't collapse under pressure. He quietly gathered evidence, stayed focused on the legal process, and let the truth begin to speak for itself. And now, as the media trail continues to be exposed, Blake Lively finds herself facing a far bigger storm than she ever anticipated. Because this isn't just about one court case anymore. This is about integrity. About whether one of Hollywood's most polished stars tried to manipulate an entire narrative to protect her brand at the expense of someone else's career. And the more the public learns, the more they're starting to ask, if Blake's team went this far in private, what else are they hiding? The moment the creators got involved, everything changed. Until that point, the legal battle between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively had remained a fight between two celebrities, powerful, rich, protected by teams of lawyers. But once the spotlight turned toward content creators, ordinary people with platforms, opinions, and voices the stakes exploded. And this is where Blake Lively's PR machine may have pushed too far. Because as more online commentators started picking apart the smear campaign against Baldoni, something unexpected happened. They started receiving legal threats, DMCA warnings, quiet messages from anonymous representatives suggesting they reconsider their tone, and for at least 3 creators it escalated to something more serious: subpoena notifications. One such creator, known on YouTube as Truth Arcade, revealed in a video that he was contacted by Blake Lively's legal team after he posted a 45-minute breakdown of the alleged media manipulation. He didn't claim to have insider access. He simply followed the timeline, connected the dots, and shared his opinion. That was enough to get him served, but rather than back down, he doubled down. His video, aptly titled "Did Blake Lively Try to Silence Me?" blew up, gathering over 800,000 views in under a week, and the comment section was brutal. If you're going after creators now, you've already lost the court of public opinion. Blake is trying to PR her way out of a mess she created herself. This is bullying, not justice. That single video sparked a wave of solidarity among creators. More influencers, journalists, and analysts began speaking out, not just about Baldoni but about the alleged tactics being used to suppress the truth. And then the real twist dropped. A series of leaked emails, allegedly from within the PR firm representing Blake, began circulating in private Discord servers and creator group chats. While the origin of these emails is still under review, several creators claim to have verified them with digital forensics experts. The contents are explosive. In one thread, a media strategist appears to discuss a list of unfriendly influencers who were escalating hostile narratives. Among the names on that list were creators who had never spoken directly to Blake Lively or Baldoni, but had simply voiced support for a fair, transparent legal process. One message dated just days before Baldoni's court filing reads, "We can neutralize these voices through copyright pressure or PR blackouts. Consider feeding exclusive interviews to cooperative outlets as a reward." Another message openly discusses timing media leaks to coincide with Justin's next appearance. If these emails are authenticated, and several media outlets are now pursuing confirmation, they could shatter any remaining illusion of ethical conduct from Blake's inner circle. Because this wasn't about managing bad press. This was about controlling the story, manipulating the platforms, and silencing dissent. And that, ironically, has only fueled more dissent. Creators began uploading faster, longer, smarter. They didn't just post commentary, they posted receipts, screenshots of shadow bans, DMs from legal assistants, even posts that were mysteriously taken down and then restored after public outcry. What started as a single court case now became a movement. One journalist put it perfectly on X: "This isn't just Blake versus Justin anymore. It's the list versus the algorithm. It's celebrity power versus internet truth." And at the center of this internet truth storm, Baldoni, still composed, still patient, still choosing silence over spectacle. But his silence has become its own message, and fans are paying attention. Meanwhile, Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, who once seemed inseparable from public commentary, have gone eerily quiet. The couple, known for their banter, their curated posts, their Hollywood's most likable image, have said nothing about the growing outrage. No post, no denial. Not even a vague "don't believe everything you read" caption. That silence is starting to break the illusion. Because when the media starts turning on you, and when creators once happy to post your red carpet photos now start demanding transparency, silence becomes a statement. And that statement in Blake's case is being interpreted as avoidance. Several major media outlets who initially played neutral have now updated their tone. One entertainment blog quietly edited their piece on Baldoni's supposed outbursts, removing several quotes that had originally come from unnamed studio sources. Another gossip site issued a rare correction. After claiming Baldoni had abandoned a project, turns out the project had been shelved long before, and Blake's team had been responsible for its delays. This isn't just a win for Baldoni, it's a blow to Blake's credibility. Because every piece of misinformation corrected, every half-truth exposed, chips away at the careful image she's spent years building. And the deeper question lingers: why was she so afraid of Baldoni speaking his truth? Insiders now say there are more leaks coming: emails, memos, meeting notes from pre-production sessions where Blake allegedly overruled creative decisions without consulting her partners. Even text messages, which Baldoni's team has already subpoenaed, may show the tension that sparked this battle long before the public ever heard about it. And Ryan Reynolds, he's keeping his distance. Sources say he's been deeply frustrated by the negative attention and wasn't fully aware of how far Blake's team was willing to go in handling Baldoni. Whether that's true or part of a distancing strategy remains unclear, but what's undeniable is that Ryan hasn't defended his wife publicly. And for a couple that's built their brand on unity and shared humor, that absence is being noticed. Hollywood too is watching. While no major star has directly criticized Blake, the absence of support is deafening. No solidarity posts, no commentaries, no high-profile quotes defending her character. The industry is choosing silence, perhaps out of caution, perhaps because they don't want to attach themselves to a narrative that's unraveling faster than anyone expected. As for Baldoni, sources close to him say he's letting the truth unfold naturally. No press tour, no smear campaign of his own. Just court filings, quiet confidence, and a team that's now pursuing something much bigger than legal vindication. They want justice for the manipulation, for the defamation, and for the creators caught in the crossfire. Because this case, more than anything, is becoming a symbol of how powerful people in Hollywood still try to control the story. But now, for the first time, the people who usually get silenced, the creators, the analysts, the fans, are talking back, and Blake Lively, it seems, didn't see that coming. As the dust begins to settle, one thing is abundantly clear. This is no longer just about a creative disagreement. What started as a legal dispute between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni has unraveled into a cautionary tale of image control, behind-the-scenes manipulation, and the rising power of independent voices in the digital age. And the more evidence that surfaces, the harder it is to deny that Team Blake may have drawn first blood. The carefully curated public persona, the spotless brand affiliations, the magazine spread showing her as a symbol of elegance and empowerment, they're all starting to crack under the weight of what appears to be a deliberate, preemptive attempt to discredit a collaborator who simply refused to play along. And perhaps most damning of all, the public sees it, and they're not buying the silence anymore. Justin Baldoni, who could have easily responded with outrage or scandalous reveals, chose instead to build his case patiently, methodically, and truthfully. He let others connect the dots. He let creators speak out, let journalists investigate, and let the internet pull back the curtain on what seems to be a calculated smear effort. And in doing so, he didn't just protect his name, he empowered others. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's silence has grown louder by the day. What was once seen as poise is now interpreted as avoidance. What was once brand control now looks like damage control. And as the court proceedings move forward with possible defamation claims and creator testimony looming on the horizon, the story isn't just about one woman's image. It's about power and how it's used when no one's supposed to be watching. Hollywood, for all its glamour, is still a business of perception. But this saga has proven that in the age of social media and digital truth seekers, perception can't be manipulated forever. People are smarter, creators are louder, audiences want transparency, not spin. If Team Blake truly initiated the media attack against Baldoni, the consequences may go far beyond the courtroom. She may lose brand deals, projects, trust, and the narrative of America's sweetheart turned mogul could quickly be replaced with something much harder to control, a legacy defined by silence in the face of accountability. But there's still time for truth, for reconciliation, and perhaps even redemption. The question is whether Blake will step into that truth or continue hiding behind legal shields and digital PR fences. One thing's for sure, Justin Baldoni didn't smear Blake Lively, he exposed a smear, and the public, they're wide awake now. Because in the battle between image and integrity, it's becoming crystal clear who's standing on solid ground and who's watching their empire tremble beneath their feet.